I'm going to start out with some practice principles that will help you to focus on the goals that you're trying to achieve. First, you have to decide on a goal that you're trying to achieve, whether it be a left-hand exercise, a right-hand exercise, a scale that you're working on, or perhaps a baseline that you heard on a record that you really want to get together. Then you have to implement it by a lot of hard work and by practicing. Usually when I practice, and I think it's important for you, is to have an environment where you're not going to be distracted in for a period of time. Make sure there's no telephone, maybe turn the bell off on the telephone. Just make sure you're in an environment where you're not going to be disturbed. With all the exercises that we'll be doing in this book, I strongly recommend using a metronome. And it's just very important, especially if you're studying the bass, but any instrument, to use a metronome, because it really establishes a very solid time feel. And with bass playing, you're an integral part of the rhythm section, and it's totally necessary to be able to groove and be in time. Also, a way of keeping track of your progress to achieve your goals. A good idea is to start a notebook today, and on every page, draw a diagram like I've indicated here. It shows the date of the exercise, the tempo marking, and the duration. And what this will do is it'll help you to keep track of your progress as you go. Perhaps every day you increase the tempo a little and you play it a little longer. By the end of a week or two, you'd be surprised at just how much progress you can make and how you can achieve the goals that you're trying to set out. It's important to have an instrument that sounds good and feels good, because it's going to inspire you to want to play and practice more. I'd like to show you some of the instruments that I have here, as well as some of the effects. And this first instrument is a fretless bass. It's a 4-string fretless bass. And as you can notice, it has lines that sort of look like frets, but actually they're inlaid. And on top of the inlay, on top of the ebony neck, is a very shiny finish. It's a very thick finish, and what this does is it gives the bass a lot of sustain, number one. And number two, it protects the neck because I use round wound strings. These are D'Addario, to be specific, XL 170s. And I'll play a little just to give you an idea of what this sounds like, this bass, very isolated. This is a double neck bass. It's made by MV Padula Guitars, and it has an 8-string fretted neck and a 4-string fretless neck. And the 8-string fretted neck has a high string and a low string, both usually tuned the same in an octave apart. And this has it's very similar to a 12-string guitar sound. I'll demonstrate just to let you see how that sounds. and this is a 4-string fretless bass, which is very similar to the one that I just demonstrated just before. It also has the heavy finish on the inlays so that I can actually tune up, because a lot of people ask me, how do you play in tune on a fretless bass? And generally, I have to look to really lock in the intonation, because you really, as in an upright bass, you can't, there's no guidelines on an upright bass that you can use different positioning to feel where you are and use it relatively from there. But with this, it's just a blank neck. So I'm always checking it out and always looking, and that's the only way for me that I can play in tune, hopefully. And I'll demonstrate this whole bass in just a minute together, but before that, I want to show you some of the effects that I have. And I'll just give you the path that it goes from the bass all the way out until the final sound. Okay, I go out of the bass into a volume pedal, and I like to use a volume pedal because I like to use dynamics when I play. It's very important. And by using a volume pedal, I don't have to reach down to my volume knob on the bass. I can actually just play and do it with my feet, and it's very convenient. So out of the volume pedal, I go over to an effects, it's a foot pedal effects board. It's made by Ibanez. And this has a stereo chorus, a digital delay, another digital delay, a flanger, and a compressor. And as with most of the effects, these are things that I've sort of gotten together in my own experimentation, and you should experiment on your own and figure out things that fit the music that you're playing. Out of that effects rack, I go into this effects rack, which is, I call my wave box. This consists of a harmonizer, a stereo chorus. Out of the stereo chorus, I go into a Lexicon PCM42 digital delay and another Lexicon, left and right. Out of those, I go into a stereo reverb. This is an Ibanez SDR1000 reverb. Out of the final stage of this, I go into my amplifier, which is an SWR amp. This particular one is called a Redhead. And that's basically the effects that I use. Again, try your own, experiment. And before I go on, I want to just show you a little bit about what these delays can do, because as a result of having this double neck bass and having these effects, I've come up with a lot of compositions that I've recorded on my solo records. And I will demonstrate how I can lock in a pattern using an infinite repeat and then play on top of it.